animal hopefully we're going to find today, the green salamander, is a priority species identified in the action plan. Its habitat, these rock outcrops, are identified as a priority habitat. So those are ones we're really targeting. You can see why someone would want to build a house right on this lot. I mean, look at this view. Look at just the neighborhood you're in. Highly desirable piece of land. I forgot what the going price was on the market.
We paid $335 for it.
Okay, so over $300,000 for less than an acre, and you can see why. So the history of this site, well, first let me say the site itself, you see this rock top here, the site is off the edge through all the shrubs and the small trees there. So when we finally go to the site, we're going to kind of go through the bushes there and we'll be down there at that level. So you can see how close the habitat is to a building lot. The history of this site, we have data going back 17 years. This is the 18th year we'll collect data here. The Resource Commission has not been involved with this site that long. There are other researchers that have studied this site for 17, 18 years. And back in the 90s, 80s, there was some kind of, seemed like a big population decline with this species. We don't know why. And it hit this site too. This site, that far back, people were only finding maybe 1 or 2 salamanders. Mid-90s and on since 2000, we found as many as 22 here at one time. We found all age classes, so you know the eggs and the babies and the juveniles and the adults. So it's a very productive site, and it is now one of our best ones that we have in the state, as far as that many, that number of animals and that success with reproduction. So I don't know what happened. Something kicked in, and whatever was depressing the population, maybe it's gone now. We just don't know. That's why we do some monitoring. In Macon County, we have sites down around the Glen Falls area, that Blue Valley area, the Wilson Gap Road area, Rich Mountain Gap area. There's some historical sites in and around Highlands. We pretty much think they've been destroyed now with development. Of course, habitat loss is a factor that's affecting these animals and a lot of other things out there. But over those years, the ownership of this lot was kind of confusing. It changed hands a lot, apparently. And most recently, it was for sale again, last year, I believe it was. And through partnering with the Land Trust and Highlands Biological Station and some other folks, it just took making some contacts to identify the landowner who was trying to sell it. He freaked out that he had endangered species on his property, thought he couldn't sell it. But it just so happened that the buyer, Toby Wells, was just easy to work with. He agreed to push his house back. He wanted to put his house right over here to the edge. And he agreed, because of the habitat, not only to save it, but to buffer it and push his house back. The bottom line is, the site should be protected. It's buffered. You guys are kind of near the edge of the buffer. It may run right through here, I believe. Is that right, Gary? Yeah. Somewhere in here, over to that corner. So all this from where I am back is going to be protected. Another important thing with this species is the tree canopy. This salamander has toe pads like a tree frog. It crawls on the rocks, but it also climbs in the trees. So it needs all these trees and all this structure to climb on and forage and hide, but also these trees help shade the rocks. If the rocks get too hot, too sunny, they get too dry, it's not good for amphibians that need moist skin, of course. So a big part of this easement is Toby agreeing to leave the tree canopy intact. We have allowed for over time, if the trees climb up another 10 or 20 feet and block the view, he can cut them at least to this present level, but no lower. So as it is now, the site is fairly shaded. It's pretty good. So, and it's only going to get better if these trees continue to grow. But, just another part of working with the landowner to make the deal work for him is to protect this view. So it's a win-win.
The driver for all of these is the green salamander. Without the green salamander, we probably wouldn't be having a discussion here, because it's really hard to justify the cost and doing a conservation easement on 1/4 of an acre. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is equivalent of having a bald eagle nest. here, okay? This is a rock outcrop. And rock outcrops are they're dry places. The soils here are really very shallow. And this one's been pretty beat up. Sunset Rock's another one that's been really beat up. But the plants that grow here have special adaptations that allow them to handle living in really dry places. And so actually, the house he's going to build is going to sit back a little bit, and the landscape architecture guy is going to incorporate the rock outcrop community into the landscape design. So they're actually going to keep the sensitive plant community and tie it back into the landscaping, and there'll be little walkways and things because they don't take to trampling too well. But so it's more than just, I mean, again, they've gone the whole way. They've understood the significance of the ecosystem and are willing to help protect it as much as they can. So this is not public access. That's a really important thing. This is owned by Toby Wells. He's a private individual. And you actually have to have permission to come on his property just to do the salamander.
I let him know when I'm going to come out here. That's a part of the easement too, is that in perpetuity, the Wildlife Commission and its conservation partners will be allowed to come out here and monitor the salamanders, because it's no good to, I mean, it's one thing to protect the site, but if we can't continue to monitor the population, then we've lost a lot of valuable data. So just out of courtesy, and we try to do this with all landowners before we access their private properties, to let them know what we're doing, tell them when we're coming out. So yeah, it is not accessible to the public, really.
Same thing with
How
the
often
land
do you
trust.
do that?
I'm sorry?
How often?
Some of these sites I survey about 3 times in the fall. In the fall, because the salamanders are coming into the rocks to prepare to, get over for the winter. They get deep in the rocks to survive the winter, and it's just a good time of year to see them. You can see them in the spring and the summer as well, especially on rainy nights. But with our projects, we've got year-round projects with a lot of other things. So fall is like the time that we have to monitor this population. So we're just talking about hemlocks and what's going on with them. We all know our hemlocks are dying. Another stressor on green salamanders, a lot of these rock outcrops and sites where we have green salamanders are shaded right now by hemlocks. Even have hemlocks growing on the rock and around the rock. So when that shade component is gone in a few years, however long it takes, those rocks are going to be more exposed, going to be hotter, drier, especially if these drought cycles continue. So those are just more stressors against this species. They just, they can't take those microclimate conditions changing that drastically. So that's something else we have to worry about, is their shade. A lot of salamanders need, and amphibians in general, need at least some kind of moisture. Some are more tolerant than others of dry conditions. They at least have to have moist soil, moist leaf litter. The inner workings of some of these rocks are pretty moist and stay a fairly stable temperature. The green salamander is not one that when the babies come out of the eggs, they've absorbed their external gills. They come out like little adults. They don't have the fluffy gills, so they don't need the water. A lot of species, salamanders, the hatchlings, emerge with the gills, so they have to have the water, like what you're talking about. So there's lots of different kinds, but they all are very sensitive to what they bring in through their skin. A lot of them breathe through their skin, so they're taking in all the toxins and pollutions out there in the soil and water and air. So for that regard, amphibians in general are our indicator of what's going on in our environment. Some people call them the canaries in the coal mine. So that's people can understand that. I get a lot of questions of why we should care about these salamanders and salamanders and amphibians in general, but most people can understand that they are trying to tell us something about what's happening to our environment. And that one right there. See him? I'm trying not to blind him.
Some of the salamanders eat a lot of them. I'm not sure.
He'd be hard to see if you know what you're looking for.
Yes, they blend in. All right, take a peek up here when I shine the light. Can you see that?
Yeah.
There he is. He's happy as a clam.
Yeah, you can't really do that without a flashlight.
So could you just point out?
Mm-hmm. It's right in there. Can you see him at all?
No, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'll see it when you get it out.
Oh my, we have a hatchling in there too. A little hatchling is crawling on this one's head. And the hatchling is on the move. Okay, who else hasn't seen it yet in the crack?
Try to scooch around to the
Brian, did you get a picture of it? Brian, were we able to get a picture of it?
That's
It was kind of dark. See if I can find another one for you. He moved as soon as he saw me.
Okay, come up here.
I go up here.
There's a little hatchling in there too, crawling on its head. A little guy, little hatchling, which makes me think this may be a female, and that may be one of her brood.
One of her brood?
Possible. Maybe the female.
There's 2 hatchlings. Did you see that?
Oh, 2 hatchlings?
Yeah,
No, I didn't see a second
one
one.
on her back and one by her
sweet.
face.
There are 3 up here.
Mm-hmm.
4 up here.
You guys got more up there?
Yeah, there's this crack.
There's 4 in one crack?
But they keep going back further when I put the light on them, so I'll leave them alone.
Excellent.
Daddy found the little one. Daddy caught a great cheek. Daddy caught a great.
Oh, you got a gray cheeked? Cool. Where the female and the hatchlings were, there was another adult in there with it. So that's at least, what, 12 now?
We've got 12, and then we got 4 met calves.
Okay, so 12 green salamanders total. That includes the 2 hatchlings, right?
Yeah.
And you said 4 gray cheeked, 4 southern gray cheeked. So that's another species that uses these same cracks, and probably there's some competition there for the cracks, but you guys can see the kind of habitat it likes, and the really tight cracks and the clean cracks that it can get deep in the rocks. So that's a pretty good effort for just what we did. Obviously, we're not seeing all the salamanders that are here. The only thing I've read about population estimates as far as detectability is at any given time, there's maybe 10% of the population that's visible, and that's on night surveys when it's rainy and wet conditions and they're out. But I would think at least maybe 50 in this complex could be here.
How many salamanders do you have to have before you have a viable population?
It depends on the species probably, but a lot of people, that 50 number is a minimum viable population for long-lived animals and animals that are slow to reproduce, which salamanders are. They live a long time, they mature after several years, and these green salamanders actually skip a year breeding. They don't breed every year. Especially in drought conditions, I would think that that may make some animals want to skip breeding again. But so they're a unique species, but that's a pretty good number.
So these guys lay their eggs on the roof of a crevice.
Yep. They have sticky stuff on the egg clutch, and they attach it to the roof of the crack, and the female protects it and broods that egg clutch to protect it from predators. And she'll stay there for weeks until they hatch, and even. I think the female, or the one we saw there, was a female because the hatchlings were crawling all around her. So the hatchlings will kind of stay in the brood crack for a while.